here we are. 4 teams remain. Bears got their new head coach. Bunch of head coaching jobs getting filled up. We just heard about Aaron Glenn today. A lot of good hires coming in. Um, Again, I might have seemed like a real hater when I was talking about Ben Johnson coming on, but it was just more like skepticism on like how he's going to coordinate the defense and like coordinate the entire team. But like seeing his approach and why and his intentionality and like why he took a year to like reassess and look at his options and how he wanted to coach the Bears, I'm super happy about it. Corstian, how are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, a ton of coaching updates have been happening. I haven't been able to keep up with all of it, but yeah, I don't know. Coaching news has been exciting. I mean, not a surprise, but both the Lions coordinators got poached. Uh, with I think their DC going to the Jets, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. He went to the Jets.
yeah, and then who? There was a guy that backed out of going to the Jaguars, I think, and I thought that was just kind of funny. I forget the coach, but I know Jags fans were excited. Oh, it was oh my gosh, who was it?
Was it? It wasn't Cliff. It was Liam Cohn of the
Yeah.
Buccaneers.
But
And then
yeah, so
the Jaguars actually fired Trent Baalke. So I don't know if
yeah.
that had anything to do with it or just
hmm
like he's doing a Ben Johnson, just like trying
hmm
to be intentional about his choices. So
Yeah, and then the Colts got their new defensive coordinator is the former Bengals defensive coordinator, so we'll see how that goes.
that is gonna be a really key thing to pay attention to.
hmm
Lou Anarumo, I think, was a scapegoat where I don't think it was his fault primarily. He played a
hmm
part in not adjusting in time,
Yeah.
but that's a really good get. I thought they might have considered hiring Eberflus again just because he was a really good defensive coordinator.
hmm
But this is an equal, if not better, move. Like Lou
Yeah.
Anarumo, I was hoping for the Bears to get him, but it looks like we're gonna go with Dennis Allen. I
hmm
don't mind that. The thing I'm worried about is personnel
Yeah.
changes because we already have the personnel. Might need to shoot like as far as like the back eight, if you will,
hmm
back 7, 8. But like the front four is what needs adjusting. So I'm hoping Dennis Allen's gonna adapt to the players here, not
hmm
necessarily like revamp an entire scheme because that is gonna slow all the momentum down we had in this defensive season. But lots of good coordinator hirings, like you see as well. I'm super excited to see like what happens in like the Raiders and the Jaguar spots because it's very interesting. A lot of smoke went to Ben Johnson's definitely going to the Raiders.
hmm
But then like you hear him talk now, he's like Chicago was the one place I wanted to be. I wanted this job. And that just oozes all the confidence as Bears fans. But like it leads to wonder, like for the Raiders and the Jaguars, like if you don't have like a confident structure from the GM or coach standpoint,
hmm
or you don't have a confident quarterback, or offensive coach is like less likely to go there.
hmm
Like it begs a very interesting question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at it and it's like of those three teams that we just have like mentioned, Jags, Raiders, and Bears. I mean, Bears just have the most enticing quarterback situation to go to. It's like with Trevor Lawrence, I think there is a world out there where he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he's been in the league so long that you're like you have your doubts, which is just unfortunate, But with the Bears, it's literally just Caleb's rookie season, and I think it's almost any offensive coach's dream, to go to a team that just took a quarterback number one overall, has decent draft capital, has a lot of young, interesting pieces to work with, and work off of that.
And you've seen the flashes from the quarterback as well. Like that's a key part. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think with Trevor Lawrence, it's just like yeah, you see the flashes. They're not as consistent as Caleb's.
Mm-hmm.
Is part of it him, or is part of it just like the Jaguars have nothing besides Brian Thomas Jr. surrounding him?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the Jaguars are more of a project than people thought.
Yeah.
Certainly what I thought because when they were riding high a season ago because they're still in this season, like I think this is the most shocking thing. Like just seeing how that ended up with Doug Peterson without a job. So yeah, very very interesting here. Um, we'll go into some of the divisional round games. This was kind of a mixed bag until you hit Sunday. Like that was, I mean, the Saturday game was really fabulous in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But like the Texans and the Chiefs game, that ended up being a really good game. When you look at
Mm-hmm.
the face of it, the only bad games I'd probably say was maybe maybe the Chiefs and the Texans
Mm-hmm.
after the Texans were unraveled. So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, had to retract my statement a little bit there after saying it was pretty mixed. But compared to the wild card round, I actually enjoyed the games. You know, the scores were like farther away
Mm-hmm.
than intended.
Yeah.
But starting with Houston, the Chiefs, what were your like main takeaways like watching those two teams duke it out?
Um. Yeah, I know. Like the big talk is going to be the penalties that went the Chiefs' ways. Um, and like to an extent, I can look past the penalties that were called. I like in hindsight, I don't think they should have been called, but I think the one moment of the game that irritated me was like the Patrick Mahomes flop right before he go like as he gets pushed out of bounds.
100%.
Because I'm like, sure, it's like with the helmet to helmet hit that they called, that was really just the two defensive players button heads. I'm like, well, that's just kind of part of the game. Multiple quarterbacks could be in that situation. And like the nature of the speed of the game, I can see how that gets called. But then when he slows down right before going out of bounds to try to like bait a unnecessary roughness penalty, I think that's kind of a cheap move. Um, and so it's like, I don't know. He's like, I think I'm thinking about like the hate that the Patriots got versus like the Chiefs get nowadays. And obviously, it's been a couple years since the Patriots were dominant, but I feel like when like I'd say the Patriots that I remember kind of feel like those first couple seasons of the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, where you're like, oh shoot, we're going to play the Chiefs, we're gonna get dominated, just because nothing can stop this offense. Whereas nowadays it feels like the Chiefs are a team that they just win off of like, I don't know, just because they feel like they can do
You can get
things
away
their
with it
way.
essentially. Like they feel like they're getting away with these wins.
Yeah, because there's a couple plays too where Mahomes got sacked and he immediately looks at the ref and like raises his arms up and asks for the flag, and I'm like, dude, you're like I don't know. I feel like, I mean, Brady, sure, he complained sometimes too about some of the bigger hits, but like I felt like there were more occasions where Brady just kind of took the sacks in stride and was more fired up the next play, whereas the Chiefs are upset that
Yeah,
they got
yeah,
sacked and we're like saying, hey, we're not supposed to get sacked. Like that was too much, right? And like I don't know. And obviously it's hard to like compare it because again, it's been a while since we've seen Tom Brady and the Patriots, doing their thing, but it always felt like like Brady and the Patriots, Brady in general was like, oh shoot, like every time he has the ball in his hands, they're probably going to drive down the field and score. If not, pin you guys back in really awful field position. But then I don't feel the same way with the current Chiefs. But when Mahomes won
yeah.
MVP, I feel like that was the same thing as how the Patriots felt, when they were dominant.
I just from a feeling standpoint, I hate the Chiefs a lot more than the Patriots as far
Mm-hmm.
as like a winning organization. Like I respect what Patrick Mahomes has done. I respect what Travis has done. I respect what Spags has done. I respect what Reed has done.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the play style they've had these past 2 seasons have really like irked me. Where it's like it's not really their because they have the talent and because they have a loaded defense now, they can get away with a lot more. And some of the things the Chiefs do is just because they don't make the mistake or the penalty of the mistake they make is not called.
Mm-hmm.
And that ends up being the difference in the game where I would argue some of the penalties shifted the momentum because especially related to the ones with Will Anderson Jr., where he played by the rule book every single time and got called for like 2 or 3 huge penalties. Like those would have stopped the Chiefs on drives where like they're not going for it on like 4th and
Mm-hmm.
12 and 4th and 11. Like if that doesn't get called. And I think that's what D'Amico Ryans is referring to when he feels like he's playing against like multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't fault
Yeah.
him for saying it. He's probably going to get fined for saying it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think he's not wrong when he assesses it. But I think there are bigger problems with the Texans that were there all season long. Like, it was a
Mhm.
big issue. It was a big reason why Stroud's numbers were not as good. Like, and the injuries. Like, the wide receiver injuries killed them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
here's one possession that laid out the fundamental flaw with their offensive line. Literally 3 or 4 plays on a down-to-down series. Like, on the same, like, set of 4 downs. CJ Stroud got pressure up the A and B gap from, like, multiple players on each play.
Mhm.
And, like, the first 2, I think he threw away, but, like, the last 3 were, like, sacks. So, like, by the time it was, like, 4th down, they had lost, like, 30 yards. And that's a problem that the Texans have to figure out. Like,
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Mhm.
Because if they don't figure out their offensive line, it doesn't matter how great Stroud plays, he's not gonna have time to get the ball
Mhm.
where he wants to go.
Yeah.
So that is that's a huge thing they gotta clean up.
Mhm.
I thought the defense played well, considering as far as, like, the first possession the Chiefs had was really a large part of their offense was the special teams return.
Mhm.
Like, what caused the Texans to lose this game was their special teams and their offensive line in crucial situations.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, like Stroud was sacked like 8 or 9 times that game. Like, and like I mean, in like the first half too, I think they did a decent job keeping him up and like not having him like needing to scramble or like maneuver the pocket as much. But I feel like you look at like the last 3-ish drives that the Texans had of offense, and like I swear at least half of their sacks feels like it came from those drives. And it's like
Yeah.
in crunch time, like the offensive line just kind of like crumbled. Um, and so it's like while the penalties did suck and probably did affect momentum to a decent extent, ultimately I do think the Chiefs overall do deserve the win here. I mean they outplayed them just in general because even the flop that Mahomes had, that wasn't a penalty or anything, so they didn't necessarily gain anything from that. It was a cheap move, but for the most part, I mean the Chiefs just did better on the majority of the facets of the game of football.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to sum it up. Sticking with the AFC, this was an incredible game by both the
Mhm.
Ravens and the Bills. That's really sucks for Mark Andrews. He had a Say Flowers moment. Like, it literally, like, every one of their, like, receiving corps seems to have, like, a brain dead moment at the worst possible time.
Mhm.
And for Mark Andrews to have, like, a key fumble and the drop 2-point conversion that would have sent the game to overtime on the same on, like, the same quarter, being the biggest quarter of the game,
Mhm.
that is rough. That is rough. And for those, like, slandering Lamar, saying he can't win the big one, I wouldn't put this on him. I think there are a lot of issues that the Ravens had defensively and with the receiving corps where I can't necessarily put him and the big Derrick Henry drop. Derrick Henry had like a 40 to 50-yard reception in his arms that he dropped, and I think it was the little things that ended up losing
Mhm.
them this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the quarterback to quarterback comparison, like Lamar handedly outplayed Josh Allen, I think. I mean, sure, like Josh Allen had the 2 rushing touchdowns, but like you look at the types of touchdowns those were, and you're like, okay, it's cool. But then, I mean, like,
But that wasn't the game script of the Bills. Like
mhm,
they decided to run more than like 50 or 60% of the time. Like
mhm,
it was a very run heavy game plan for them. So
yeah,
Josh Allen didn't have a lot of opportunities to throw
mhm,
it down the field.
yeah. But I'm just going to say like how like not putting the blame on Lamar here is like he did play a good game of football here. He had like the 1 interception, but he has two throwing touchdowns, threw for 250 pass yards, and then he also had 6 rushes for like 39 yards. Like he did play a good game of football here. So yeah, I mean I agree that you can't just put the loss on Lamar in this situation.
Yeah. As far as the Bills, like Allen was playing phenomenal. The defense came in and stepped up. They did a great job containing Lamar and Derrick Henry at times.
Hmm.
Like it was a remarkable performance, like compared to like how they fared against like I think and this is where we gotta look at the Bills defensive coordinator because from a Sean McDermott scheme and like kind of the identity he wants to have on defense, he wants to let his pass rush win and
Mm-hmm.
send like 7 guys back. It's very similar to an Eberflus type of scheme. Make them
Mm-hmm.
drive the length of the field. And whenever Lamar had, I had a stat here I was reading through. Whenever Lamar had zone coverage, I think it was like 8 for 8 or 12. No, he was 12 for 12 for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns and 44 yards on zone coverage. On
Mm-hmm.
zone coverage. So like that's looking at 15 yards per attempt and 14 yards per drop back when you account for the scrambles. When the Bills switched to man coverage, he completed 6 passes on 13 attempts, and the Ravens only gave 72% yards,
Mm-hmm.
74 yards. And they averaged only 5.6 attempts on man coverage. When you account for the yardage, loss on sacks. So like 15 yards to attempt to 5.6 just based on the coverage you throw, that was like huge. And
Yeah.
this is a Bills team that blitzed at its highest percent at 26.3% and played man coverage at basically 54% of the
Mm-hmm.
time. And maybe because not having Zay Flowers played a huge part in this game plan, where like he's the one guy that can expose any defender or cornerback on him, that definitely helps you to move the man coverage. But I just thought that was a significant change from what they've done on average over the regular season. Just
Mm-hmm.
looking at their tendencies and saying, no, we're not going to play with our tendencies just because our players are comfortable with it. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to make you think about what you call on offense when game
Mm-hmm.
planning for us. When I look ahead into the championship preview, which we'll talk about later,
Mm-hmm.
that's a key thing to look at, like these types of discrepancy in stats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought James Cook cooked. Like they did a lot of like good things from that game. Like it just felt that everything was hard for the Ravens until it came to the third quarter. And once they got Henry rolling, they were right back in it. And it really felt like it was going to go to overtime, and then Andrews had that drop. So, not much to say on this front. I think we can move to the NFC side. Um, Lions fans, that was rough.
Mm-hmm.
That was rough. Offensively, they played really, really well when they didn't turn over the ball 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that was the difference in the game because the Commanders also played really, really well on offense. They just couldn't stop the triple option handoff or Jaden takes it or they throw it all the way to a guy like by the sideline as like a bubble screen kind of thing. Like Lions could not figure that out for the life of them. Jaden Daniels had clutch throws. Terry McLaurin, like I know a lot of people are like hyping up Jaden, but Terry McLaurin is doing like absurd things with the football in his hand. It's like whether it's not just deep passes, he's like pulling DJ Moore type stuff. Well, he's running for 60 or 70 yards free because he's creating the ankles for himself and
Mm-hmm.
breaking tackles. Like he is playing out of his mind right now. And he kind of felt like a guy in the dog cage without like a quarterback and like Dan Schneider and just like
Mm-hmm.
very unorganized organization. And
Mm-hmm.
now with Jaden Daniels and seemingly new GM and new head coach, he's just like all pro #1 receiver. It is ridiculous to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was good Commanders and bad Lions combined. It was a bad mix, and not leaning on Jahmyr Gibbs all game hurt the Lions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I feel like because I mean, like we've always known Terry McLaurin's good. Because I mean, like literally, he has 5,000-yard receiving seasons in a row right now. So like, he's been doing. I mean, the touchdowns obviously spiked up this year, but yardage wise, like he has been able to make plays, and so now we see it like with a more like competent quarterback that can run this offense. We see kind of just him being more unleashed, I guess, to do what he can do. But then we were texting as well about like just the coaching and everything with the Commanders here. And I think a big part of just the Commanders' overall success was the fact that they seem to have focused on building the offense around the players and not trying to like scheme fit the players into a pre-designated offense. And this offense is really built around like making life easier for Jaden Daniels that falls into his strengths, because you were saying that like if Jaden Daniels plays in a way that he lets the game come to him and then he reacts off of that and is able to make the big plays that he does. And it's, big part due to the fact that I think Cliff Kingsbury, he
allows him to do that.
Yeah, because I remember like the beginning of the season, we had the concerns of like, oh, can he, continue this level of success he had early in the season, especially that like 2-3 game stretch that he kind of struggled a bit.
Mine was outside of numbers. It was never about the RPOs or like the quick slants or like the short distance throws. It was outside the numbers for me. When I saw like the deep shots he took, especially the one with De'Ami Brown against the Lions, like and another player playing absolutely out of his mind as well compared to like what he was projected as a draft prospect. Like when I see that throw where he's like layering it, like where De'Ami Brown's basically double covered, and you have to put it in the perfect spot leading towards the sideline, and he does that. I'm like, there's not. He proved everybody wrong. Like as far as like doubters, like that is you got to give flowers to Jaden Daniels, and it makes you sick as a Bears fan, seeing like how a functional organization can get this far into the playoffs. But pretty happy they knocked off a division rival, and we can post their OC. I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. So it was unfortunate for an end to the season for the Lions, especially just like how they played over the course of the season, and I feel like. Sure, there were the turnover mistakes, but I mean, you look at kind of like the injuries that just have happened over the course of the season for the Lions. I feel like this season they very much, even though they lost here, they definitely overperformed in my opinion, just due to like the amount of setbacks with injuries. Because we have David Montgomery who got hurt towards the end of the season, and like, sure, he's back, he was back playing, but like, was he really 100%? And then just all the different guys that were missing on defense. I feel like that played a huge part into this. Injuries are part of the game, though, so it's not like
including Amik Robertson. He was a huge defender when they played when they played like some like Justin Jefferson and the Vikings. Like he was a huge reason why they won that game.
Yeah,
and he got hurt within like the first quarter and stuff. So yeah, it's fair point, but also we saw bad Jared Goff at the worst possible time. He was just making bad decisions, and the Commanders' pass rush with I know like when Chase Young and Montez Sweat got traded, there were a lot of concerns on like what would happen with the Commanders because they just traded away two great edges off of like one of the best defensive lines in the league. They came to play. Dorrance Armstrong, Fowler also came to play, like, and they really got after Detroit. Like that was something I was not expecting to happen as well.
Yeah.
So they made Goff uncomfortable, and crazy Jaden Daniels stat I wanted to play, like not play, but just give you. Out of all the championship round rookie QBs, there are only 4 others: Roethlisberger, Flacco, Sanchez, and Purdy. Jaden Daniels has a similar offensive rank as Brock Purdy. Both were like 5th. But the team defensive ranks are wildly different. Brock Purdy had the best defense by ranking. Mark Sanchez had the 3rd in 2010. Joe Flacco in 2009 had the 3rd best defense in the league. And Roethlisberger had the 4th best defense in the league. This Commanders defense, which is terrible against the run, is 24th. That's just remarkable to see like how he went so far against like offensive powerhouses in Detroit and in Tampa. It's pretty remarkable what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, remember like not this season, but the previous season when we were doing our like team rankings, like we gave the Commanders a lot of losses, but we both felt like it was hard to do so because we felt like they were so close to being a good team. And they inevitably did sucking last year as we predicted. But then we look at what they did over the course of this offseason, and I feel like that just amplified kind of like how we felt this team might be able to do. Because, you add Jaden Daniels as quarterback. Luke McCaffrey's been an all right, just middle of the road receiver. But then you also draft Brandon Coleman to be, a starting tackle. Mike Stainstrill, came into his own. He was drafted later than I think a lot of people expected, but he's balling out. But
that interception at the end of the first half, that I think swung the game, because you look at Detroit, like if they hit that post route, it's a 3-point game, and he just made a crazy play. He's a really, really good player, playing out of his mind as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you look at the free agency acquisitions too, where they brought in Austin Eckler, who's been like a solid receiving back here. Zach Ertz is here, and then they brought Nick Allegretti and Tyler. How do you say his name? The center, Biadaz.
Biadaz. I think. I'm totally butchering that too, so don't even know.
But you have that. Then you bring in Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler at the edge positions, and you bring in Bobby Wagner, Frank Louva, and Jeremy Chin as 3 additional defensive pieces. And like Frankie Louva was one of my favorite free agency linebackers this most recent offseason, And then
Bobby, did you see
Wagner's
that nasty hit he had on Stafford? I mean, sorry, on Goff doing that interception return. That was crazy. That was like he just totally rocked him, man.
Yeah, and so just like seeing all these additions that they made, like it, and plus the fact that the team was pretty much able to stay healthy all season, it makes sense why they were able to play so good this season, and like they keep on, I guess, surprising us time and time again, even though they've proven time and time again that they can keep up with the big dogs.
Yeah, no, and I think we can talk about this when we're looking at the preview, but actually let's transition. So to the championship round, these are the final 4 teams, and this is how many days since each of the final 4 teams have made it to the championship round. Kansas City, 358. That makes sense because they've been there like 7 years in a row, pretty much every single time Mahomes has started, which is insane. Philadelphia, 722. Makes sense. They were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The Bills, 1,457. Makes sense. They were in it in 2021. That heartbreaking loss. And the Commanders, 12,062 days. Think about that for a second. That is wild. You look at the Chiefs, the Bills, like 2 teams are under 1,000, and then the Bills, 1,500. Pretty good. You're not expected to make it every year or every second or third year. But the Commanders not being there for that long is like remarkable. We didn't think there was a better rookie than CJ Stroud going into this year. And look where that came. So I think you know where the offensive rookie of the year is headed. But leading into that, I just wanted to throw that stat while previewing these rounds. We can start the NFC Championship preview between the Chiefs and the Bills. This is a highly anticipated game. I think there's a certain stat, I don't remember the graphic, where the Bills and the Chiefs have played each other 10 times since like 2021. And since that time, like each have 5 wins. Each have the same amount of yards and same amount of touchdowns. Same amount of not touchdowns, same amount of points in that time span. They have the same amount of wins, same amount of points, and yards per game, which is crazy. These teams are like as evenly matched as they come. What are you looking forward to in seeing this game?
I think from the Bills side, like they just got to get moving quick. I think. I feel like they have their game plan, obviously game strategy against the Ravens, but like it felt like a slow start for the Bills in my own personal opinion. And that's why I think the Ravens are able to keep it so close. But if the Bills come out swinging and like aren't holding back really, which I mean that's what you do naturally, but like I think they just gotta minimize mistakes in like the early portions of the game so that they can like just attempt to dominate the Chiefs in what they do. But also I mean like the Chiefs, like despite the way that they play, they have a lot of excellent pieces on this offense that can really, if they really wanted to, they could probably keep up with any team in the league, which is, I don't know why they don't just try to blow out everybody every single game. I mean, you got Travis Kelce, who, like, sure, he had a down year, but, like, he's still good. Hollywood Marquise Brown, he's back in the lineup. DeAndre Hopkins is there. Isaiah Pacheco's slow, like he's come back slow because of whatever his injury, but he's there, and then Kareem Hunt's there. So like you got a ton of these pieces on offense, and so it's like it'll like from the Chiefs side, I think they can't play as reserved as I think we've seen them, and like I even look at the beginning of the season of the Chiefs when Rashee Rice was healthy. Like I feel like that was an example of the Chiefs that we saw like back 4 years ago, that I think made people excited to watch the Chiefs. And like if the Chiefs can do that against the Bills, I think Chiefs got this game. And so it's kind of whoever tries to activate their high-powered offense and not like try to play the tight, nitty-gritty game, I guess is.
Yeah, at the same time, DeAndre Hopkins has been really quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Pacheco. Now Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy.
Mm-hmm.
You forgot about Worthy, man. But they made big plays like
Mm-hmm.
in these playoffs. Like Hollywood Brown like made a crazy catch on the Texans, and Xavier Worthy has just been a nightmare to deal with. He was getting Stingley got on a couple plays, and that's what do you get like one of the top corners in the league to do that? That's like just a standing on your player. Like Xavier Worthy, invest in him. He's going to be a star in this league. But for me, I'm going to jump to the other side of the ball because when looking at their previous matchup, like the Chiefs could have held the Bills under 30 points if they really wanted to, but the fundamentals were not there for them in this game, and it killed. I get it, they were on the road, but like when you have poor open field tackling where they have like 13 missed tackles, and then like one of your players, I think it was Johnson and Nazeez Johnson, I think he allowed like 9 receptions for 103 yards in coverage, and then having penalty after penalty. That is like absurd. Like and there's one. Josh Allen's never had a rushing touchdown in any of his matchups against the Chiefs except this season.
Mm-hmm.
And on that play, like there's like 2 or 3 like Chris Jones and Karlaftis, who's playing out of his mind from last game as well. They just lost gap integrity. And like Allen had a 1.2% chance to score on that play, just reading the stats here. And the fact that he did is just telling because normally he's just beating them through the air. If they keep this game under 30 points, they have a solid chance to win because this Bill offense can explode for anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also looking at Bobby Babbage. I just talked about what he did against Ravens. He's not Leslie Frazier or Sean McDermott. He's going to change things up. So he's not afraid to change looks at the Chiefs. So even if the Chiefs get him on a couple of good possessions, I don't expect it to remain the same way. So while I say the Chiefs have a good chance to win if they keep the Bills under 30, I really think this is a pick'em game, and it's like can't really just say the Chiefs are going to win because I think that on paper and what we've seen in the past couple games, the Bills are equally as good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, like the reasoning I bring up the Bills like offense powerhouse or whatever is like they've put up like over 30 points like 7 or 8 times this season. I was just counting. And so it's like we've seen them just like gut teams pretty much week in and week out with their offense. And so it's like, yeah, like that's like that's what my expectation of the Bills to try and emulate here is like almost play for the shootout, like because I think that's ultimately like if you can't win the shootout, you're not going to win the game. Like I don't know.
What you just said, like Kansas City could really just keep up with anybody if they wanted to, you know? So,
yeah, and so they can. But the thing is, as well as like KC has not put up over 30 points a single game this season, and so it's like I think in the case of a shootout, it'll be close, but the Bills do have the edge there, and so I think that's what you should
that's the winning
ideally.
formula.
That's how you should ideally approach this game. Is like, hey, like KC is great at winning the close games, and so like even if even if our like the quick drives on offense hurts our defense a little bit, we just got to keep the momentum going on our offense, if it means even like a quick low point score, like even if the first 2 drives are like field goals, but it takes you like 5 plays to get across the entire field, and just like keeping that momentum that your offense can keep going and going, because eventually you get far enough and you will score those touchdowns. Whereas like we feel like the Chiefs can do it, but we haven't seen the Chiefs do it. Is kind of like my rationale for how the Bills should think about this game.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
Especially because like Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, they've played elevated roles, and they got Von Miller healthy off an ACL tear for about 2 years now. So they have Matt Milano. He was a key factor in that game against the Ravens. He's back. Like that is, yeah. I think one thing they did really well against the Ravens too is they baited Lamar to scramble in a certain direction, and they just had Milano QB spy / contain that area that they wanted Lamar to go to. I think you do the same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Even if he makes an absurd passing throw, like all the time, like I think just throwing him off his rhythm, I'm like, oh, there's a free rusher coming at me every time, and they want me to scramble in a certain way. Like I think getting that in his head is going to distract him enough where I think you can get the Chiefs on a couple of good looks. So as you can tell, I'm leaning towards the Bills here. Total opinion here, I'm tired of the Chiefs winning constantly. I'm sure you are too, being a Broncos fan. But I objectively feel they have an equal chance to win this game. Objectively, to toss up, I'm going to go with the Bills to win this because I want them to win it.
Yeah, I mean, I want the Bills to win. I don't feel like I can have an unbiased take on like how I feel like the game will go, just because how much I want the Bills to win this. But I think the Bills' biggest nightmare would be going to the fourth quarter. It's a low-scoring, close game. Would be the worst situation. A high-scoring, close game, I think, favors them a lot more.
Yeah. It's also the psychological thing too, where they're always right up with the Chiefs until the very end of the game, but like it's low scoring, under the 30s type of game. Like, and they've lost those games in the past to the Chiefs in the playoffs. So like you can't help that creeping thought in your mind. I'm like, what if it's like 20-20 with like 3 minutes to go and Patrick Mahomes has the ball? Like I would be freaked out. Like if you're in that situation. So like if I'm the Bills, get a lead early, and continue to be efficient on offense. Because I agree, I think the high scoring affair like helps them out the most. So you said you got the Bills. I got the Bills.
Yeah.
We're all rooting for you, Bills. Let's go. Alrighty. That leaves us with our last topic, previewing the NFC Championship preview with the upstart Commanders against a Saquon dominant Eagles. What are you looking forward to in this matchup? This is the third time these teams are meeting.
Yeah. I think as fun as the offenses are, like it'll be interesting to see how the defenses approach these games. Just because I mean, like we know what the Eagles' offense is capable of. Even in their most recent game, I think Jalen Hurts was out, right? And like the Commanders win 36-33, and so with Kenny Pickett and Tim, whoever's the guy, they put up 33 points against this Commanders defense, which is something you don't want as like a backup quarterback doing to your defense that has been overall pretty strong, or have had playmakers throughout the entirety of the season. And because then like you look at the game before that when they played each other, the Eagles won 26-18, and so you're like, they've both won a game, but the game that the Commanders won, the quarterback for the Eagles wasn't there, but also the commander, Jaden Daniels and the Commanders offense was able to just dominate the Eagles defense. And so it's like, obviously Eagles offense will be high powered. And so it's like, how does the Commanders go about doing that? And then time and time again, we've seen Jaden Daniels just like never give up. He just keeps going, keeps slinging, keeps on making crazy plays. And so it's like, how can the Eagles work to contain that, despite, we've seen all these other really good teams in the league attempt to stop that and struggle to do so.
Yeah, I agree. Except the Bears. The Bears did a really good job until the Hail Mary. But
yeah.
I mean, if there's anything to take away from this game, it's who's going to break first. Is it the Commanders' offense or the Eagles' defense? Because on the flip side of the coin, you have the Eagles' defense being equally as good, best unit in the league. Like Vic Fangio's just completely turned Jalen Carter into a monster. Like I'm not gonna be like Darnell Wright was a bust, but boy, that hurts when he's like one pick away. I wonder when that could have happened. Hint, hint. Aaron Donald trade. Bears are one pick away from that. So it's like you think about the player that Jalen Carter is, and like how he's like there were off the field concerns that dropped him all the way from 1 to 9, and how he's completely changed as a player. And that whole defense with Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, the emergence of Zach Bond, like this is a really, really good defense this year. And I think the breaking point will be that. Because on the other side, it's as much praise as we've been harping on the Commanders, they don't have the tools to stop Saquon. Like Bobby Wagner went back in time by 10 years, maybe, but this is a rough run defense.
Yeah.
And the type of season Barkley was having still, like it's like how do you deal with that offensive line and him? That's and Jalen Hurts just had a really long touchdown to start the game against the Rams. It's going to be very difficult for the Commanders to deal with that run game. So I think the other side of the ball is what's going to define the game here.
Yeah, because both the games that they played against each other, Saquon has ran for 146 and 150 respectively, and had rushed for 2 touchdowns in both those games. And so it's like,
he's the head of the snake. You have to stop him first.
Yeah, and he's like, I think both offenses can go toe to toe with each other, just in different ways, obviously. And so just like you said, whoever breaks first, which defense can get the crucial stop at the right times. To put their offense in a position to get just that little bit of ahead so that they can close out the game.
Yep. With that said, who do you have winning this?
I feel like Eagles probably win this, but like I'd like to see the Commanders win this one, but I don't know. I just feel like Jalen Hurts getting just that much more time to recover. Saquon playing as he does, it's hard to see, like, envision how you can stop this Eagles offense, really. And so that's why I give it to the Eagles here, I think.
I think we're both looking forward to a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl. It's even if you do stop them, then you got to worry about the trio that you were worried about 2 years ago with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert. Like that is a lethal trio combination. You got to pick your poison. And I think the Commanders are like, okay, just don't let A.J. Brown beat us in the passing game. Like that's your first priority. So it's like, do you pick that or do you pick Saquon? And like by the time you choose, like Saquon's 40 yards down the field. And I agree with Jalen Hurts getting healthy. They're just too overpowered right now with their offensive line, where I don't think the Commanders will stop them. Now I know we probably are thinking the same thing about the Lions and the Commanders here, but I think the big difference is, one, the Eagles are not missing so many pieces on defense, and two, their defense is one of the best in the league. So they will get stops from the Commanders, which is hard to say because they barely punt. I think the over/under on punts in the Lions Commanders game was like 6.5, and that was a very easy bet if you took that, if you took that under. But I just think from the offensive line and the Commanders, counting for that, like I don't think it's on the same level as the Eagles' offensive line, and because of that, the defensive line is gonna get in the backfield a lot, and you're gonna have Jaden Daniels like carrying the load, and it's like I think the Eagles in that type of game are more efficient, will get more points easily, and will ultimately win the game.
Yeah, I think one last thing about this is I wouldn't be surprised for this game to be one of those where it's like last possession wins, where whether it be close, like a low scoring game or like a moderately high scoring game, it could be one of those where like the offenses just can't be stopped on both sides, and it just turns into whoever has possession of the ball last will score the ball and end up winning the game for their team. It's
That's
like
that's what basically happened in the Rams game. Like the Rams were completely dead to rights, and then they just suddenly revived themselves, came back, just
mhm,
turned it around, and then ultimately they didn't end up scoring points on the last drive. But
mhm.
it was I could see a game play out like that as well, so I wouldn't be totally surprised either.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like I'm more excited for this Eagles Commanders matchup than I am the Chiefs Bills, which is kind of funny, but
That's
it's kind of
crazy. That
that's kind of how
that's
it
that's a
is.
wild take right there. I can't believe. I don't get me wrong. I am excited, but I'm just tuning into the Chiefs and the Bills just to see like, okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
can Josh finally overcome the Chiefs in the playoffs?
Mhm.
Can he do it?
Yeah. I
Because
mean, storyline wise, yeah.
I believe in the team. I believe the Bills can do it. It's just
Mhm.
it's just a psychological thing they have to get over because if they
Yeah.
do, they're probably winning the Super Bowl. With all
Mhm.
due respect to the Eagles and the Commanders. Like this is the Bills' best chance to
Yeah.
win the Super Bowl, in my opinion. The
Mhm.
Chiefs are not playing as well as they should be. They're getting away with a lot of it in penalties, and you got the equal talent playing field. So, yeah, I agree. I'm gonna go with the Eagles too. Like I
Mhm.
stated earlier. But yeah, any other closing thoughts, Corstian? Anything you want to tell the people?
Um, no, I guess not.
He's done. He's totally
Yeah.
done with y'all. But I'll say this: Ben Johnson's the GOAT. Caleb will be better than Tom Brady. We're about to win 8 straight Super Bowls, and Patrick Mahomes will never be uttered in the same breath as the savior, Caleb Williams. So that is my final words. This will be the last time the Bears are not in the NFC Championship for the next 10 years. But till then, follow us on our journey to describe that at amon.a.mission on our Instagram. Yep. And on our YouTube channel where we have the full length videos, I'm on a mission. So follow
Yep.
that. See you guys later. And we're going to talk about the Super Bowl next week. It's going to be exciting. Enjoy.
Yep. Peace.